Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. One of the most powerful men in IT, Sundar Pichai, has backed regulations for artificial intelligence. While Pichai isn't the first big tech executive to say so publicly, his voice matters given that Google is arguably the world's largest AI company. Tesla and SpaceX chief Elon Musk has been vocal about the need for regulating AI several times in the past. Musk even said that by the time we are reactive in AI regulation, it's too late. Microsoft President Brad Smith is another prominent person in tech who has called for regulation of AI. Pichai, in an editorial, advocated for AI to be regulated, keeping in mind both the harm and societal benefits that the technology can be used for. He also said that governments must be aligned on regulations around AI for making global standards work. While India has been vocal about the use of AI in various sectors, it is far from regulating it. A 2018 Niti Aayog paper proposed 5 areas where AI can be useful. In that paper, the think tank also noted the lack of regulation around AI as a major weakness for India. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the need and challenges in regulating artificial intelligence. Joining me on the program today are Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. We are also joined by Mausam, Associate Professor, IIT Delhi, and Subimal Bhattacharjee, Cyber Technology Expert. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Sharma, let me begin the program with you. Let's first try and understand and analyze what the benefits of artificial intelligence really are and how can India tap into it and how can we go forward?
Right. This is a very important question. The whole world is asking for it. Look, every technology has a light and a shadow. So there are great benefits, there are great challenges, there are great opportunities. What is the benefit of artificial intelligence? Now, first we should understand that artificial intelligence is basically a decision-making system. So you got huge amount of data that no single mind can understand, analyze and come to a decision. This is about like looking for a needle in a haystack. This is about getting patterns, this is getting sense out of big data. So this data, for example, you may have a whole map, you may have the density of people, you may have a socioeconomic strata, you may have educational details and everything. Now you ask yourself the question, and you know the network of roads and everything, where should I put my next school? Now, this is a problem in which you want to look at connectivity, you want to look at how many children are there, what is the catchment area, what kind of education is available and so on. So, making decisions is what artificial intelligence does, which is based on evidence, which is based on huge volume of data. So, clearly, what are the benefits? Benefits is in terms of governance, in terms of decision making, in terms of development. So no matter what you are planning, maybe it is a transport network, maybe it is energy and water network, it is education, it is about agriculture. Everything that we do, every kind of activity is actually impacted by this. Artificial intelligence is one component of a more general concept, which is intelligent machines. Rise of intelligent machines is a challenge and opportunity for all foreseeable future. It's starting now, but there is no end to it. So essentially, an intelligent machine is a convergence of many technologies. It's about communication, it's about computing, it's about decision making, handling big data, also perception, like sensors, and it's also about autonomous action. So the entire Industry 4.0 is based on this autonomous decision making, collecting data and acting on it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me now welcome Arnab Kumar, Program Director, Niti Aayog, on the program as well. Thank you for joining us. Before I come to you, let me bring in the other panelists too. Mausam, so we've heard about the benefits. How well placed are we to take advantage of some of these benefits?
When you say well placed, are we? You mean India as a country,
India,
right?
Yes.
So I think we have some ways to go. I think we can get there. I am fairly optimistic, but there are 2 components or 3 components of succeeding and reaping the benefits. One is to figure out what is the application of interest, right? So agriculture or education or healthcare, right? The other thing is to find the data that is country specific, right? And then it is to take this data, take the existing technology that may exist from other parts of the world, and then modify it, fine tune it, develop it, and get it working in our setup, which would require compute power and the right manpower. So I think we have a huge amount of data. However, there is more to be done in getting it together. There's more to be done in annotating it and so on and so forth. We definitely have a lot of interesting problems where such application, where AI can be applied. Compute can be purchased, and I believe Niti Aayog is working very heavily on it. I think we have a little bit of shortage of manpower in terms of the skilled manpower of people who can understand the depths of the AI algorithms and get them to use. It's increasing day by day. A lot of people are coming back, migrating back to the country. A lot of excellent people are moving into the field of AI in this country right now, and I'm hopeful that in the few years, we would reach a point where all this would culminate and we would have the critical mass of the people as well as interesting data sets which can be applied to specific applications of interest. So I think we can get there, but we have some ways to go.
Okay, let's talk about some of the challenges then. So Vimal, what are the real challenges as far as AI is concerned? What kind of challenges does it pose? The biggest one, at least that I can think of, is data and data protection.
So I think we are trying to address data protection, and in that same note you can say that we haven't been very late in looking at the advantages of artificial intelligence. I think the Prime Minister himself has been leading the effort for quite some time, and you referred to the June 2018 Niti Aayog report. Now, how much of that internally, you would be doing, how much of that the external, the private sector and all other entities, you involve them in a holistic manner. I don't see that, the challenges have erupted right away. I think as the department and has been looking at AI's advantages. Now, we spoke about agriculture, education and the larger issues within the country, but even if you look at manufacturing, even in the defense sector, the military has already for the last 1.5 years been looking at how do you apply AI. Now, when you are trying to use a concept of Make in India and get into many of these hardcore activities, there also the applications are huge. I can tell you that when we are looking at procuring equipments, even if you look at a large armored vehicle that we are now trying to do indigenously here, a lot of the applications of AI are already being looked at. How do you integrate them and how do you enhance the performance? These are some of the things that we are already looking at. Now the challenge, if you see at the initial stage, it is that that how do you motivate the whole ecosystem? We are a tech-savvy nation. We have a quality team who is thinking ahead of the curve. Now, how do you involve all of them in the nation's priorities and the hackathons also that the Prime Minister has done in the past? I think we are in a direction that we want to take along everyone. Now, how do you take a huge mass of this kind of ideas from across the country, across the ecosystem and all? That's, I think, the first one. The second one is that you mentioned about some of the global leaders of tech companies trying to take it up. Now, if you look at a global point of view also, that where we haven't still been able to come to any understanding on how do you deal with cyber issues, and we are trying to set some norms and all. So artificial intelligence and even I can say to an extent the blockchain technology, the way they are all going, how much of that also should come in all these global norm setting discussions and all, because at the end of the day it is not going to be country specific activity. It has much wider ramifications, and most of the tech, you can say, collaboration are going beyond geographies seamlessly where they don't understand. So I think even on that a national approach or a national position has to be there, not only the diplomatic part but also the technical part where possibly we can also give some leadership in this direction.
Sure. Okay, let me bring in Arnab Kumar now to the picture. As far as misuse of this technology is concerned, or AI technologies as a whole, how susceptible are they to misuse, and how much of a problem is that going to be going forward?
I think that's a very fair question. If you have been reading news, you would have seen that Google CEO Sundar has come up with a fantastic op-ed on Financial Times, which is very much needed. when we have developed India's national strategy for AI, one thing that we emphasized on was whatever our endeavors be, it should be aimed towards responsible AI. What responsible AI means is that we use it ethically, in a secure manner, and we try to minimize the biases that it may lead to. What one needs to understand is that how AI solutions are built on. They are built on using data sources. And if you look at the way that it has been developed so far, people have taken a technocratic approach, saying that if we have a wide array of data and algorithms are supposed to be neutral, hence the solution I develop could be neutral. So there are two types of challenges here. One could be that it's an unintended consequence, and second is a misuse itself. Now, if you look at a data, which you may think that it's a well-diversified data, but it has biases built over several years or several generations, then one needs to actually work on removing those biases before saying that this is an actual representation as an AI solution that you can use. So that is one use. And then, of course, you would have heard about things like deepfakes, etc., social media manipulation, etc. Those are other bigger challenges of artificial intelligence, because the amount of data and amount of algorithm that is coming into the picture, it's become difficult to see what it could lead to. I mean, an AI solution which is dynamically self-learning is a non-deterministic system. The consequences that it can lead to, it's difficult for one to predict ex ante, and hence there are several challenges. The biggest challenges that I could think of are in the terms of these few things which we call as biases, privacy concern, security concern, whatever it comes under the broader aspect of ethics and ethical considerations for artificial intelligence.
Certainly. All right, taking the discussion forward now. Ashutosh Sharma.
Frank, I just wanted to tell you about the data stuff that you said. This is actually a very critical issue. Because you see, all the industrial revolutions until now have been driven by the movement of flow of muscle, materials, and energy. This is the first era in which the entire society, some people call it Society 5.0 or Industry 4.0, basically is driven by the creation, flow, manipulation, ownership, and destruction, and building on data. So people say data is the new oil, but actually I would go ahead and say data is the new water. Water is going to be even more precious. Now, important thing about data flow and ownership is that historically, we as a nation have not valued raw material. So the raw material we think, oh, is there, somebody will use it and bring value to it 100x, 1000x, millionx, right? This is about time that we start valuing our data. In fact, the data generation is far more capital intensive, far more labor intensive than manipulating it with AI. So the engine that drives AI is actually not algorithm, it is data. And it was pointed out that this is our strength as a nation. If we do not leverage it, if we throw it away like, oh, this is dirt, right? So one guy walks in and say, I got algorithm to solve your problem, give me your data, I'll give you $10, right? That would be really stupid. And we need to get this gospel across to every nook and corner of the country, that data is to be hugely respected. The second aspect that you said was very well articulated by Niti Aayog person. I said, look, what are the challenges of AI? Challenge going in the future, of course, there is the fake stuff and all that, deep fake as they call it. But you see, the real huge challenge going in the future is that even anchors of knowledge would be suspect. So today, you see, we share certain things that we call wisdom, traditional wisdom, what have you, which is a shared belief, and it is tested. But look, if I control 1 billion bots, they can alter the entire history. They can alter everything that we actually hold to be true, right? So that what I define as the basic anchors of knowledge itself can come loose. This is why another challenge which was not pointed out is in terms of possibility of amplifying inequalities, right? So basically you say, look, information is knowledge, and this is the first age in which information becomes true power and knowledge, right? So there is a real challenge in saying, look, how do we make sure that was pointed out is not only ethical, but it is transparent, that this is something which is responsible, this is something which is, can be interrogated, and you get the right answers by that.
Sure.
Right? So ownership of all of that is very important, and we need to start paying attention to it very seriously.
Okay. So that having been said, Mausam, how important is regulation, and what kind of regulation do we require?
Right. So let me make 1 or 2 points before that. So I actually really agree that data is very important, but I would not go as far as saying that if you have data, you don't need algorithms. So there I actually disagree with Ashutosh here. I feel that data is a starting point. There are 3 pillars that need to come together, and if the 3 pillars don't come together, we will not be able to have the beautiful exponential progress that we have been able to have. In fact, the exponential progress has only happened because data, compute, and algorithms came together. So I think that's critically important, and we should not belittle or think one as less important than the other. Data is incredibly important, definitely. Regulation. Now, I believe that we have been using the word AI, but AI is not one technology. AI is a general philosophy of making machines intelligent, which can get manifested in a wide variety of applications, right? So we as intelligent people, we can see a scene and we can understand what objects are in there. We can speak language, we can understand our friends, we can help somebody when they are down or whatever it is, right? We as intelligent people do all of these things, and we also kill people, and we also commit suicides, and we are crazy people also, but we are, as intelligent people, commit all these actions. Now, AI is the sort of juice that is powering all the algorithms that make these decisions. But when they get manifested in a specific application, that is where the role of regulation comes in, right? So a lot of this conversation about Sundar Pichai and everybody has come in because of the face recognition technology. European Union recently has said that
put it up for 5 years.
Yeah, that let's not have face recognition for 5 years, and a lot of people use Apple phones, and Apple phone has a built-in face recognition system, and maybe Apple phones will stop having that particular feature for European Union. And that is one kind of regulation. That is an extremely conservative style of regulation. But if you think about it, they're not saying regulate AI, they're saying regulate face recognition in a certain way because it may have unintended consequences, for example, in the context of mass surveillance and so on and so forth. Now, should we regulate face recognition or should we regulate mass surveillance? And I think that's the question we need to ask.
Talking about mass surveillance, I must ask you this question. Some of these movies really scare us to no wit's end, but could that be a possibility? Maybe not the Terminator, but maybe something like an Eagle Eye.
Well, it is possible for the machine slowly to understand more and more of the scene, understand faces, understand activities, understand language. It is possible over time that this machine would be able to crunch through a lot of information, not today, 10, 20, 30 years, maybe 20, 15 years down the line. It is possible that a lot of these applications become so high quality that they can be put to misuse.
Right.
But we have bigger misuses or possible misuses today. We have nuclear weapons. The world has not collapsed yet. We keep talking about World War III, but the world hasn't collapsed, even though we have nuclear weapons, Pakistan has nuclear weapons, and the US has nuclear. It doesn't matter. So eventually, nuclear weapons need to be regulated. And at the same time, you need to encourage people to use dynamites and the smaller bombs which make roads and so on and so forth, right? Take any other example. Think of chat bots, not chat bots, but just your WhatsApp, right? Your messaging platforms. No, we want to ensure that everybody has access to the messaging platform so that they can stay connected to each other.
Right.
Great thing. But then when terrorists start using the same platform to figure out where to bomb, when to bomb, and so on and so forth, that is when we need some kind of surveillance, right? So eventually we need regulation, in my opinion, in every technology. But when I was an undergraduate student, there was a beautiful course of philosophy in our campus, where the one thing that I remember from this course, I'm a tech student, so I can't remember too much about philosophy, but one thing I remember is that is technology value neutral or value laden, or is its application value neutral or value laden? And the final take home for me was that technology by itself is value neutral. It is the specific use in which it is put that creates a certain value. And so we have to be absolutely mindful of where any technology, be it the messaging platform or AI put to facial recognition or whatever it is being used, how it is being used, what are the consequences, and whether it should be used or not used. I mean, a simple example is dishwashers. Should we have dishwashers in our country or not? Maybe we have so many people who are, making money by washing dishes in everybody's homes. Once everybody has dishwasher, all these people will be out of jobs. Maybe we should regulate it in a certain way. But that does not make dishwashers bad. In US, everybody needs them because they don't have people to do those jobs. So we have to think about applications and not technology.
So this brings me to my next question. Suvimal, how easy or difficult is it to regulate AI?
See, you want?
Yeah, Suvimal. Yeah.
So that's a great question, and I liked Dr. Mausam's point about nuclear. Now, if you look at nuclear and space, and that partially will answer what you were asking. If you look at nuclear and space today, globally, you have a regulating body, and possibly that is also a reason why the threshold limits are never exceeded. In cyber, in all issues of cyber for the last 10 years, whatever effort has been happening to the UN or outside of the UN through the advanced nations, when we are talking of multi-stakeholder participation and everything, we are not able to come to any kind of an understanding. And I don't see it coming also in the next 3 years. Now, why it is not happening? Because of the fact that we have too many stakeholders who are still not able to decipher what is a certain standard. Whether you look at from an ethical dimension, whether you look at from a point of view of how do you regulate technology also. AI or face recognition or whatever you can see in the front, you are now you have a certain sense of notion that okay, face recognition but there are many things that are happening beneath which you don't understand. Millions of activities, so many scamsters are there, syndicates are operating and all. Now, how do you ensure? You might have a good national policy you are regulating. Your rogue neighbor, he might have a completely different purposes and all. So that's where the complexity of coming to a regulatory scenario in the world is very, very poor, and that's where I think, as Mr. Sharma had mentioned about data being water and not oil. Even if you don't get into that, but even if you look at data as a treasure, from wherever it is emanating and all the usefulness that it can finally lead to nationally or whatever, sector specific and all, if you are not able to come to a scenario where this forms as one of the basic within the norms that you would like to set,
right,
when you try to address technology issues, you are going to be aware technology is going to mutate and go to a level that would be even more complex to deal with. So I would think that discussion, even if we take a lead in taking that discussion among the peers, whether it is national, many of the countries talk to us, whether it is 5G or any other thing, all the advanced nations are talking to us, look at us. So why don't we take the first steps in even looking at bringing in a sense of regulation? It's not going to be easy, but it has to be attempted in a harmonious way.
Okay, all right. So this brings me to my next question, Arnab Kumar. Where does India stand as far as regulation is concerned?
Sure. So before I answer that, I must compliment Professor Mausam. Absolutely well put, well said, which says it's not the technology itself, but the intended use of technology that needs to be understood. In technology parlance, regulation of early stage or emerging technologies is through something called a Coolidge dilemma, which is the best phase for regulating any technology is in the early stage of adoption. The problem is that we do not know what will be the societal impact of that. One example is social media. When social media, Facebook, etc. started, it was because we wanted to get connected to others. Now it has manifested into fake news. I mean, if we had started regulating social media at that stage, we would not have known this consequence. So the way we need to understand and do this is through a few stages. The first stage is we have to have an absolute set of principles. Now, several entities, several organizations have come out with a set of ethical principles for artificial intelligence. Google has come out with one. The one that I found the best and the most intuitive is Asilomar principles, set of 23 principles released in 2017. Very well said. Said the goal of research should be to not have undirected AI pursuits, but towards the benefit of mankind. What should be judicial transparency, etc. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is that you start understanding what are the various levers at which you need to regulate. And I'll give you and then finally you try to understand where it has gone wrong. The levers that you have, as Professor Mausam said, the first lever is data. How do you make sure that data is not misused? and so probably privacy frameworks, etc., need to be built in. Now the problem with privacy framework are multiple. There are solutions also to probably say I will have encrypted data. One way of encrypted data is say differential privacy. What people need to understand is that if you are doing something, you have to think of unintended consequences also. Right. Differential privacy adds noise to data, and what it does is it removes all, outliers. The problem with removing outliers is that you induce bias in a system. So you need to understand where this is going. So that, and second thing is you have to have a basic principles. Instead of having an absolute penalty on something, having basic negligence test, safe harbor, appropriation of how much damage is done. These are some of the principles that people have worked on. So right. That is, and finally, we have to understand if something goes wrong, let's not just start reacting. If you see, flying today is very, very safe. It was not safe 70 years ago.
Right.
How did we evolve from there to here? Every single accident that happened, we thoroughly investigated it. What went wrong? How did it go wrong? Rather than saying that we'll not use planes anymore. So that is what we do right now. If an autonomous vehicle goes and meets an accident, we say we should not have autonomous vehicles. So that approach is wrong. So from a regulation perspective, it has to be a balance of that. One thing that we at Niti Aayog have done is we have started thinking, as have several other countries across the globe, what should be the ethical and regulatory considerations for artificial intelligence and implementation, right. And more specifically deep learning, machine learning, etc.
Okay,
so we had our first workshop about a month ago, and in a few months we should be able to come out with basic set of principles of how should we be thinking about ethically applying AI in India's context.
Okay, all right. Quick closing comments now from all my guests with the best way forward. I've got very limited time on the program, less than 2 minutes. So I'm going to ask you to be brief. Starting first with you, Mr.
So
Sharma.
About regulation, you see, there one thing we should remember, that this is nothing like nuclear energy or weapons or anything like that. Nuclear energy and those kind of examples are one-off. AI is all-pervasive or will be all-pervasive, which means it impacts every single activity that we do. Second thing is the speed, reach and scale, which is unprecedented. So therefore, when we're looking at regulation, you have to make sure that the speed of your regulation matches the speed of changes that happen in AI. Maybe we need another AI, in fact, to do these regulations for AI.
Right.
That might happen. But another point about is, I'll just play a very quick devil's advocate role here, because when you say, look, regulations are not about technology, because technology is agnostic to whatever. It is about the applications. This is a prevalent view, and this is a good view 90% of the time. If you search Google, this is the view you would get. So I just like to point out that there are instances in which the regulation on technology is also applicable.
Right.
Right? So there is a component of regulation, and regulation is made up of many components. So it is about policy, it is about technology, it is about laws, it is about monitoring, right? And so monitoring is another beast, because AI being pervasive and every activity being impacted by it, how do you actually monitor as to where the breach is, right? So these are the challenges, and I would conclude by saying that we are paying attention to this. In fact, now we are setting up 20 hubs in cyber physical systems at a cost of 4,000 crores, and one of these hubs is going to be completely dedicated to ethics, policy, and regulatory aspects of cyber physical systems, which, like I said, is a more general concept than AI.
Okay, all right. Unfortunately, we've come to an end as far as this particular episode of The Big Picture is concerned. With that, I'll have to call it a wrap. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on the program, sharing your views and putting things into perspective for us. That's it from me. See you again next time.